I recently found a website offering 20 random Steam keys for $14, and considering I have just over a percent of Cherokee blood, it seems pretty obvious that gambling came naturally to me. My expectations were already about as low as my parents when I told them I was dropping out of college to pursue a career on YouTube, but I honestly didn't think I'd be as disappointed as them. Out of the 20 games, only 5 looked interesting enough to download, and only 2 of them were worth playing for more than half an hour. Golden Light, the first roll of today's dice, manages to keep every aspect of its design about as appealing as Roadkill, that's been sunken in the ground so far that it's made its way into the underground meat buildings that exist under the Earth's crust. Now, that may sound a little extreme and schizophrenic, but I'm just trying to immerse myself a little here. Golden Light, on its surface, is a procedurally generated roguelike with horror elements. Now, that may sound like an interesting premise, and it would be, except the moment you hop in, you are assaulted by the brain rot inducing visuals, the straitjacket player controller, unsatisfying and simple combat, and the ability to see about as far as Stevie Wonder after a botched laser eye surgery. I mean, come on, the time to kill in this game makes the retention graph of my last video look acceptable. And to be clear, my problem doesn't necessarily lie with the existence of any one of these features, but Golden Light tries to MK Ultra all of them onto you, and even that analogy doesn't work because you don't even get high from it. And it's the poor implementation of all of these acid tab mechanics where Golden Light incurs the wrath of me, someone who was clearly told to be himself a dozen too many times as a kid. The only saving grace about any of these mechanics in Golden Light is the ability to attack yourself, which it feels like you're doing anyways, meaning that if you find a revolver, you're given the option to shoot yourself, ironically providing me with the option to do the only thing I actually wanted to. At least then my gray matter would have somewhere else to go instead of melting out of my eyes. And I'm pretty sure there's a joke to be made about how trying to find meaning in this game represents how it felt trying to find games worth playing in this random key bundle, but honestly, I'm just too bitter to try and find it right now, so I'll make that connection later. If you want a psychedelic and overwhelming horror experience with a basic attack system and PS1 style graphics, take a look at Devil Daggers or Hyperdemon. I mean, what makes these games unique, aside from being simple yet fun and challenging games with unique premises and gameplay loops in which the insane visuals and sounds all lend themselves to the benefit of the player and only take about 5 minutes to understand, is that they're not trying to be something they aren't. There's also the whole being fun bit. Golden Light tries to mix an Amnesia style of gameplay with roguelike mechanics, and it just simply fails to do so in a compelling way, which isn't helped by the visuals being the graphical equivalent of walking into a mental institution and screaming the word retard given how offensive they are. Complexity and confusion are divided by a line so thin that if you split it in half, you would wipe 2 cities off the map. And Golden Light radiates confusion, which seems to have blown up in its face. And if you're feeling like this whole metaphor is starting to bomb, and you're thinking to yourself, trust me, we get it, then it seems only fair to match Golden Light's level of subtlety by ending the sentence with the words Fat Man and Nagasaki. And I can already see comments about how you just didn't get it and you needed to play more. But the thing is, I enjoy roguelikes that require multiple attempts in order to start getting the grasp of items and enemies and mechanics, which is why I was so pleasantly surprised when I played Cave Blazers. The aesthetic and the charm, responsive movement, and rewarding yet challenging trial and error gameplay loop were immediately captivating to me and actually brought me back after capturing footage needed for this video. It's a simple game, yet it manages to do just about everything right. Each run is unique and usually quite fast. Now maybe that's just because I'm garbage, but nevertheless, I always wanted to jump back in to try and do better. Now unfortunately, there isn't a whole lot to say about Cave Blazers, partially because the game is so simple that you pretty much get it as soon as you see anything about it, but also because when I started working on this video, I wasn't actually expecting to enjoy any of the games I played. And since I really don't have a way to segue to the next game, I'm just going to play a sound that's funny for now, but should age about as well as a glass of fine milk. The third game I got was 12 is Better Than 6, and the only thing impressive about this game is that there's even less to say about it than Cave Blazers. It's going for this Western Hotline Miami kind of feel, except it's not as fast-paced and doesn't have enough enemy and weapon variation to remain interesting. It has an interesting art style, but I can't help but feel lied to. The game is called 12 is Better Than 6, which sounds like it's implying that 2 revolvers are better than 1, which is fine and all, except you can't have more than one revolver at a time, which is really my only complaint about the game. It doesn't necessarily do anything else wrong, it just doesn't really do anything. And hey, quick question. Remember what I said about segues? Godstrike left me confused. It left me confused because I kept thinking to myself, there's no way it was as bad as I just thought it was. And that's coming from someone whose Steam library looks like a battered women's shelter, given how many games I can't seem to stop running back to no matter how bad they get. And I genuinely enjoy boss rush games, but Godstrike has fights that are so incoherent it'd make a drunk husband jealous. Probably someone who picked up alcoholism as a pick-me-up after playing Golden Light, now that I think about it. The analogy is only made stronger by the fact that it feels like no matter how hard you try to deal with every interaction, that won't stop you from getting hit by something that's completely out of your control. Godstrike has a unique system in place of a standard health bar. Basically, instead of health, you get a time limit that goes down additionally every time you get hit, and once your time limit is out, you can take one hit before it's game over. Think of it as trying to get dinner finished by 5:30. And like I said, this system sounds unique and interesting, and it would be, but it doesn't redeem the game enough to call it true love. I mean, fun. The bosses all have moves that are faster than you, or are dynamically placed with random patterns, both of which would be fine as they force the player to focus on positioning and reaction time. But when you combine them and have the bosses pop them at the same time, it goes from honeymoon to divorce just about as fast as you can say Jack Daniels. And I know what you're thinking, you're just not good enough. And trust me, just like every other victim of Stockholm Syndrome, I thought the same thing. But there's a lot of love and care that has to go into the design of bosses, especially when that's all the game is. And when you have bosses that will inevitably have attacks that have no openings in a bullet hell game, it makes it seem like the game wants perfection from the player and then still punishes you for it. And combine these sorts of attacks with absolutely no telegraphing or sound cues, it quickly becomes frustrating. My only hope going into every boss fight is surely this will be better than the last time, and surprise, surprise, it wasn't. Games that require memorization, fast reaction times, and trial and error are supposed to make you feel like you know just a little bit more going into your next attempt. Kind of like what Rage in Peace does, except the difference here is that this game is intended to piss you off. Traps are completely impossible to see and even harder to react to. The game will wait for you to feel safe only to completely destroy you as soon as you drop your guard. It's so perfectly frustrating that I couldn't help but belly laugh every time it happened to me. On top of that, it has a very nostalgic art style, reminding me of BattleBlock Theater and Castle Crashers. There was a story that I half paid attention to and music that was unexpectedly well done. The story is about you, Timmy, who is fated to die on a specific day, and spends the rest of his day trying to get home so he can die peacefully the way he wants to, with the help of a Grim Reaper. Your goal is to avoid all of the surprises along the way without filling the screen with blood. The only thing that's actually stopping you from beating the game is yourself. The chapters are broken up by flashback segments, giving you backstory to Timmy, and I imagine that it's his life flashing before his eyes. And these backstories, along with the dialogue throughout the game, actually manage to remain fairly interesting. Honestly, dodging all of the unpleasant surprises in Rage in Peace kind of felt like buying a bundle of Steam keys that contain somehow even more unpleasant surprises, the goal of which is taking a horrible situation and trying to get it to end the way you want. I told you I can make that connection later!
Then the end of the day came, and I'm ready to go. I only have to close my eyes, and I do have this